Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Girls Night Live. Have we got a special segment for you today? I would like to introduce you to Robin Gorman Newman from Great Neck, New York. She is going to help us find our Mensch today. Okay? She is a love coach, and we are going to have some fun. I don't know, Robin. I've needed you 3 times in my life. Okay? So today we're all going to hear from Robin, and we're going to find out how to find the loves of our life. So take it away, Robin. Thank you for joining us.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I put in the chat where you're from. I'd love to know who's tuning in. And I really want to answer your questions. I want this to be relevant to you. So feel free to ask away. And I'd like to start by asking you a question. I am the author of How to Marry a Mensch. You might see my book cover back there behind me. So I'm curious, does anyone in the room now know what a Mensch is? And if so, how would you define it? And also, do you consider yourself a Mensch, and are you looking for one? Because that's really a key question and something that I want you to ask yourself. So I'm going to take a moment and see. I'd love to see what some of the responses are to that.
Wow, we've got people from Staten Island. We got people from all over the place here. Livingston, New Jersey. So we got a lot of different people from different areas. Okay, Michigan, New Mexico, Staten Island, a lot of different places.
So are we getting any responses to what a Mensch is? And
do we know what a Mensch is? Let's see. Okay. Maryland, how about from a Mensch? Person with integrity.
Yeah.
How about that?
Integrity. Yep. That's a good one.
That's a good one. Okay. Someone says, well, they know. How about another answer? Okay.
Honor. Yes, I saw that. Yep.
Okay. Let's see. What else? Now twice person with integrity. Okay. I think you're going to have to give us some more definitions here.
Okay. Well, the way those are really spot on. And what I would just add, it's a decent, responsible person. And it's someone who will have your back. It's someone who will stand the test of time. And the reason that I asked this question is because it's really important to find a person who's going to be there for you. And it sounds so obvious, but we tend to very often go for the familiar. We stay in old patterns. And if you've been doing the same thing for the last 10 years or attracting the same kind of people and it's not working for you, it's time to step back and take a look at that and see what you might do differently. And around the word Mensch, there are people who have said to me in my work as a love coach, because I offer private consultations to singles, and some have said, no, I don't want to meet a Mensch. And why would they say that? Because some believe that a Mensch can't be sexy, that a Mensch can't be good in bed, for example. But then my response to that is, I think I know why perhaps you've never had a good relationship. Because there is no perfect person, but I really do believe that you're more likely to find a Mensch when you decide you deserve one. And you do deserve one because you deserve to be treated well. And I would not second guess that with anybody who's out there. And yes, I would give a person time, but they really do show their colors, and how they show up is how they're going to treat you if you engage in a relationship. So I would just like to suggest that you pay attention to that. And in terms of where to go and what to do and how do you meet this Mensch, I'm a big fan of continuity. I think anything that you can do where you can see some of the same faces more than once, because sometimes it takes becoming a friend before you can become a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And one thing that I love is volunteer work. Because if you want to meet someone who's going to show up and be authentic and do good in the world and treat you well, then potentially they might have a consciousness of giving back. And that could be for anything from a nonprofit to organizations that you care about, a political organization. And when I say get involved in a nonprofit, what I'd like to suggest is, and of course, when things feel safe, is to actually partake in events. If they have a fundraiser, you don't have to necessarily pay to go if that's not something that you could do, but you can volunteer to work there. You can take tickets at the door. You can help to organize it. And in doing all of that, you get a chance to really engage with people. And it can take the pressure off when you're trying to meet somebody. Because I'd like to share as well that one of the things that I've noticed with my clients is there's a big difference between acting like you want to get married and thinking it. And I'm not pushing marriage because that's really a personal choice. But when I say acting like it, that means, are you being open-minded? Are you giving people a chance? Are you judging in the first 5 minutes? If you're doing online dating, are you doing constant swiping? And are you not really giving people a chance to show them who they are? I was working with one of my clients recently, and I'd like to just tell a little story. And she's in her early 70s, and she's widowed and quite a while ago. And she recently met somebody online, and she had the expectations, and I think we all do, around a physical type. The type of person she was always attracted to in the past, the type of person that she thinks that she'd like to be with now. And she met this one guy who was really measuring up in so many ways. He was clearly a mensch. He was making her laugh. They had so much to talk about. She wasn't sure if the physical attraction was there enough. She wasn't sure if he was like muscular enough, for example. So I said to her, I jokingly, I said, well, can he do a plank? Does he have any exercise routine? Like, do you even know? Because this was very early on in their conversations. And she didn't know. But then suddenly she realized that, you know what? He helped me carry like all these water bottles into my home the other day. She bought like dozens of water. And I said, well, that kind of takes strength, right? And she said, yeah. And she said, I really just hadn't noticed that. So sometimes it's how we frame things. Sometimes we have expectations around people, and they might not be perfect in all the ways. They might not have that checklist and check every box, but look for the good as opposed to looking for what you feel like is missing, because it's so easy for someone to fall short if you're looking for perfection. And the other thing to think about is that if you are going on dates with somebody, again, when it feels safe, how do you feel in between the dates? Because that's as important. It's wonderful to have a fantastic date, but if in between you're wondering, is he going to call me again? Does he like me as much as me? I mean, like me as much as I like him. And it's complicated now because of texting and the access that we have to people. And I was speaking with one of my other clients earlier this week, for example, who also met a guy online, and they were texting each other, and they had several conversations, and she was really falling in major like with him. And they had a date. The day of the date, like an in-person date, not a Zoom date. And about an hour before the date, he texted her and said he was really sorry he had to cancel. He was caught up in a Zoom meeting. And she hasn't heard from him since. And it wasn't that long ago. It was like last weekend. But she's trying to figure this out. She's not clear. Does this mean he doesn't like me? What do I do? Should I text him? So she finally said, listen, I'm going to give it to the weekend, and then I'm going to text him. But I said, you know what? Like, you don't know what's going on in someone else's life at this time. And is he someone who's always busy? Is he a workaholic? Is he someone who just Zooms all the time? It's really a tough call. So she's obviously going to give him a chance, but it'll be interesting to see if he circles back to her, or she has to be the one to do that, because I know that's not going to feel good. And I think I just saw a question. Was there a question in the chat?
Yes, there was. Michelle asked a question.
Sure.
She wanted to know, she says, I give up on this generation of finding men. All they know is how to ghost women instead of telling them they aren't interested. What do you say to that?
Well, that's a little bit what we're navigating now with my love coaching client. We're not sure, what this is about him. Is he going to ghost her or not? And I'm sure not. What I would say to that is that the right person will not ghost you. Right. And I do, I think that online dating can be great if that's what you want to do. But I really am a fan of getting out there and trying in-person stuff. And whether it's going on a vacation or going to a spa or joining a book club or taking a cooking class or learning how to dance, again, all when it's safe and when you're comfortable doing these things. But now we are into the nicer weather. There are outdoor activities that are happening. And I think it's important to try to meet people in person and not just rely on the online, because some people don't present well online too. Right. So I would really try to, open up your options in that way. And again, if you pursue the continuity activities, like I said, someone's not going to ghost you because you have some kind of relationship there. You're starting as friends potentially. Was there another comment?
Yes, yes, we have another comment. I believe it's coming in from Canada because they mentioned provenances.
Okay.
There's someone that Sarah's been seeing, and since the beginning of the year, they aren't official boyfriend girlfriend yet, but they chat every day. Sometimes they talk over the phone. They're kind of on and off for a while. It wasn't easy during COVID. They couldn't see each other for a while because they live in different provinces. But since they saw each other as friends, although they aren't friends, things have been going much better recently. We went out to a museum. They've had more dates planned out. She thinks that he just needs more time for them to become official and hopefully fall in love. Any suggestions, maybe?
When you say time to become official, are you both dating other people, or do you feel like he is and you're not? Any comment? We're dating.
No, they're just they're monogamous to that. It says just dating each other.
Okay, so then that is official, isn't it? I mean, if you're just dating each other, is it that you want him to call you his girlfriend and that he hasn't said that? What do you mean by official there? What is it that's missing for you? He's not ready for a relationship yet. Okay. You've had a conversation, a lot of chatting, but always, what is she saying? Always seems the guy's, I don't see the rest of that comment.
It says a lot of chatting always, but doesn't seem that he wants to chat, but doesn't always ask her out. So that's it.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Yeah.
And how long has it been?
Since the beginning of the year.
6 months. Okay. I mean, it's a hard question. Normally it wouldn't be, but it's a little bit of a hard question now because of COVID. People are in kind of a weird space at the moment, and some people are more comfortable than others with making those dates and going out. People are a little emotionally, disturbed possibly because of this period. There's so much coming up for everyone. I feel like it's a hard time to completely judge, but what I would say is that if it's feeling very familiar, he's scared to be vulnerable. Has he had relationships in the past or not really? And how old is he, can I ask?
Let's see. She believes he's vulnerable, that he's scared to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, right. Turning 30, so he's young.
Oh, he's young.
They're young.
Okay.
They're young.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would say is that I think is a challenge with anyone who's dating is you don't want to get too familiar too fast. And if you are always there and showing up as the friend, so to speak, if you're always the one who they're calling and you're having these long conversations, you're getting into these heavy text modes and all that. And all of that might feel good, and it might feel like you're really there for each other and showing up, but it can lead to the question of, is that all this is? Or is this actually something romantic? Are we actually dating, or could we be dating, or am I just there for this person? And it's great that you would be, but I think it is important to break out of that mode to know. Because what is it like to be on a date with this person? Does it get romantic? How do they behave? She says, it feels like love when we're together.
Yeah.
And how old are you?
Yeah. And they've been physical many times. So, yeah.
Okay, I was 32. You're both young. You know what? 6 months is not a long time. You're both young. It's COVID. I would go with the flow at this point, but I think trust your gut. And and I always think trust your gut. If your gut is telling you something about someone, if it's feeling like, there's something missing, or I need something more, or they're not treating me well, trust that. Don't ignore that red flag. Yeah, she's trusting her intuition. Good. That's exactly what you need to do, Sarah. Because you know what? No one has a crystal ball, but I do think that our guts tell us a lot. So really listen to that. There's a question from Michelle.
There's another question. How can I have a guy be interested in my authentic self? I try to be myself, but it seems most guys aren't only interested in a woman's outer appearance.
Well, I think, being that I'm talking about Mensches here, that I would say a Mensch is going to appreciate all of you, and the right person will value you. And I think now more than ever, with everything we've been through this past year, that it is really important to show up authentically and to be proud of that and to care about other people and respect other people and feel like you can be yourself. And if you're meeting people who aren't appreciating that, then I think you need to take a look at how you're meeting those people. And maybe that can change. And that's one of the things that I do as a love coach with my clients, is that I dig in deep and I actually create a plan of action for someone to get them to think out of the box more. Because as I said earlier, people tend to do what they know. But if it's not working and you're not meeting the type that's serving you, then perhaps the activities or the ways that you're meeting are not serving you. And if it's online, for example, maybe you need to change your photo. Maybe you need to change your description. Maybe you should change it, try a different website. You need to shift that if you're seeing a pattern, and don't ignore the pattern. And there's a lot that you can do about that.
Are these
So
usually repetitive patterns, Robin, that you see that
yes,
if they're not having success, it's usually their own repetitive patterns that they're repeating?
typically, it's
Yeah.
either the pattern or it's the way they're presenting themselves,
Mhm.
especially if it's online, because people are sometimes lazy with that. I've seen people just stick up profiles and stick up the photo they had that they got their hands on first, and it's not necessarily the best thing. And you don't want to be generic when you're writing online too. I can't tell you how many people, this is something else I do. I write profiles for people, and they'll just say these general things that are quite frankly boring. Like if you like to read, don't just say that. Like, cite the book that you like.
Right.
If you like to travel, talk about where you've been. You want to pull people in. And that's the same thing that when you're going out there, let's say that you're working out at a gym. Wear a t-shirt that says something interesting. Maybe it's a cool logo. Maybe it's your favorite sports team or something. You want to also give people the chance, the entree to get to you. Because you know what? Guys can be shy too.
Right.
And we want the guy to make the first move. And that's so ideal, if you're so lucky. But I have no problem with a woman initiating the conversation. I think it's great if the guy does the asking out, but sometimes we have to help them even with that conversation. And I also believe that things can be props, for example, in flirting, like dogs. In my book, I actually talk about how dogs can be people magnets. If you have a dog, walk a dog. You'd be amazed like how many people will talk to you, when you have a cute dog that you're walking.
Conversation starters.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. You know what? We have to open that door and not just presume the right person is going to step in. The other thing that I would say I think is really helpful is don't presume your friends or people who know you will set you up. Make the ask. Put it out there and say, you know what? Like, I know that I'm single, but I'm open to a fix-up. If you know anybody, just articulate it, because that does a couple of things. First of all, by putting it out there, you're also putting it out to the universe. And I think it's important to really feel like you're looking with intention, and not that you're obsessing, but that you're serious about this.
Mm-hmm.
You really want to get into a good relationship. And when you state it, there's something about the energy around that. And I think the commitment that you're making to yourself. And you're also letting other people know, and also be ready, like seize that moment. I'm a fan of having either a business card or a personal card, because you just don't know where you're going to meet someone. And sometimes it can be so quick. I knew a couple who met on the Long Island Railroad, for example.
Okay. Someone else asked again a
Yeah.
question. Michelle asked a question. She said she's not good at taking photos. They don't seem to come out well. Any suggestions on how you can take a better photo?
Well, if you're doing a selfie,
Mm-hmm.
don't. Don't do a selfie. First of all, get a friend to shoot it for you. Go to a park and, go someplace where there's good lighting, because that's really a key thing. And I would say solids typically. I mean, I'm wearing a print right now, but, typically solids photograph better. And, I think just be comfortable. It doesn't have to be staged, and it doesn't. Sometimes, like, get a friend to just shoot a whole bunch of shots, but not necessarily portrait, you could even be like engaged in an activity, and sometimes it comes out better when you're not trying so hard.
Right. Okay. All right. Great.
Yeah.
Now, is a lot of this in your book that you wrote? A lot of
Yeah.
these tips?
Yes. My first book was How to Meet a Mensch in New York, which is like the Zagat's guide. And, that I would recommend so much because it's really like tri-state specific. But the second book, which was this, which is How to Marry a Mensch, in this book, yes, it's a lot of the advice that I've shared and much more. It's also stories of people who met their Mensches and why that matters. And I really love that, because you might not feel like in the moment it's important, but as the years go by, it really does become important to have someone who's going to show up for you in the most unconditional way. So I love that. I love knowing that people chose well, and it might not have been like their priority initially, but it became that, because sometimes you learn the hard way. If you've had enough bad relationships, then you take the time to go for the good one.
Do you find that the advice is different according to the age of who
Yeah,
you're trying to advise?
yeah. Well, I think what happens when someone's a little bit older is that you've had life experience.
Right.
So you've either had relationships that worked or didn't work, or maybe you just never had a great relationship. And I've had clients like that too. But because of the life experience, it does get a little more complicated because you have expectations. You might have been let down. The upside to that, however, I would say, is that you know yourself better. And you should be really clear about what's important and learn from the past. Take a look at the choices that you've made. Take a look at the patterns that we've talked about that might be there that maybe you didn't even realize. Take a look at the efforts that you've made and what's worked and what hasn't. And because you have the experience of having lived more, you can change all that. When you're younger, you don't know, as much because you haven't been around as much. So I think they're both challenging for different reasons, but I will tell you that love can be found at any age. And I have seen it, and it's never too late. And you should just aim high, but you have to stay positive. You
Okay,
need you really need to believe that it's viable for you, because I will tell you that if you don't think it is, then you're probably not going to find it.
Okay, we have two more questions. We have another question. Heidi's, her mother used to say to her, and I've heard this many times, my mother always told me there's a lid for every pot. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd like to think so, but I think you need to have an open-minded pot. I think if you have a checklist that's a mile long and you're looking for every single thing, then I'm not sure you're ever going to find that lid.
Right.
But if you can recognize that it's all, ebbs and flows, and I'm not saying to compromise like in a humongous way, because you definitely want a good person. So that's not something to compromise about. But if someone needs to, let's say, be a blonde versus a brunette, I mean, come on, really, you can get over that.
Right.
And how are you showing up in the world? It's important too to recognize, someone asked the question about authentic, but I would add to that, what do you have to offer in a relationship? What are you bringing to the table?
Right. So you have to self-examine as well. So
yeah, very much.
And how about for our single mothers with children? What advice for them if they're been married and then divorced and then they want to get back into the game? How do you advise them to find a mensch?
I would get involved in community activities. Okay. I think that's a great thing to do. Definitely you could do things in your school, depending on how old the kids are. I would get involved with local organizations. Take a look at synagogues, churches, anything that's in your area, because if you're a single parent in your area, then there's probably other single parents in your area too. Go on. In my community, we have something called Nextdoor, which is a listserv for people to, to connect with each other and ask questions and all that. The other thing I would say, not just to the single moms and dads out there, but just to anyone, is take a look at networking. Not everything that you do has to be singles driven per se. Join some networking groups, because you know what? Even if you get into the room and there's so much amazing Zoom stuff that's been happening during this last year, and I'm sure some of it will continue for a while, go to an online conference, join a networking group, attend a talk, get into that room and hang out. I was giving a Zoom talk similar to this a while back, and a couple met in the chat room during my talk. So sign up for things. And even if you're in the room with people who aren't single, you know what? They might have a friend. They might have a brother. Just dive into life, but look at things that might not seem so obvious to you, because you might not think of networking as dating opportunities, but how do we know that it's not?
Should they try to go to things that they would maybe put in their profile online, things that are in their interest, that maybe they'll find like-minded people, to your point of
Oh,
networking,
yeah,
things like that.
absolutely.
Okay.
But
So
even, yeah, I mean, it could be like, for example, I'm also a Broadway producer, and I'm actually developing a musical inspired by my books.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
so, yeah. And so during the pandemic, I attended a theater conference, and it was amazing because it was something that I probably wouldn't have gone to before, because you can't go to everything.
Right.
And I met the nicest people in that Zoom room, and people who I've since spoken to after that. And I've also joined to, different networking groups I've gone to. A lot of these places like the WeWorks and venues like that where people work typically are doing virtual things because they've been closed, for the past year. There's also, for example, if you look at Pulver, PULVER.com, I discovered them during the pandemic, and I actually know the founder and his sister, and they've been doing these lovely free networking events and hosting other talks. And there've been some really cool people going there. Meetup.com, is a cool website to take a look at. Clubhouse, if anyone's on Clubhouse, there's a lot of single stuff going on in Clubhouse. The new audio app. I mean, these are all things that are worth exploring. And someone says, what's it called? What, Clubhouse? Or I'm not sure what she's asking. Meetup?
Michelle,
what I mentioned,
which
Meetup,
one?
Clubhouse.
Or Pulver? What was the other one? Pulver?
Yeah, Pulver, PULVER.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
the
Pulver,
first,
that's the one I just
the
said.
first
Yeah.
one, Pulver. Yes.
Yeah. And also, like, if you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, any of the social media platforms, join groups, get involved. It could be your interest. It could be where you live. It could be alumni organizations. Take a look at that as well. And they're probably all doing Zoom stuff now too, getting those rooms.
So it's really about putting yourself out there, getting involved and just putting yourself out there. That maybe
yes.
Too often, maybe we just close ourselves in. Okay.
Well, I think get out there, but think out of the box, because so many people do the online and do only that. And the one thing that I would say, I think I started the conversation this way, if you've been doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working, but you like it, all right, fine, stick with it, but you need to introduce other things. And you don't know where it's going to come from, and you might surprise yourself, because you might say, you know what, gee, I never thought I would like to swim, but you decided to take a swim lesson, and maybe you met some great people. And on top of that, now you love swimming.
Right.
So you might cultivate some new interests, and that makes life exciting. And when you feel good about yourself, that also makes it more likely you're going to meet someone. It really is an inside job first. I like to say it takes one to know one to find one, but you have to find yourself first.
That's great. That's great. All right. That's wonderful. I think we got some great tips here today. I think you got a great book I'm going to have to go buy and look for a Mensch. So
wonderful. And you don't have to be Jewish to be a Mensch.
No.
And it's a man or a woman. And I'd be happy to work with anyone one-on-one if anyone has interest. You can reach me at lovecoach.com. And I have a Mensch group on Facebook, which is not dating specific, but it's inspiring. So people are welcome to join me there as well.
It's wonderful. That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming here today. You've just given us so much information, and we've put all your information in the chat for everyone, and we really enjoyed everything. And I hope everyone will join us Monday afternoon for one of our chatting sessions next Monday night at 7 o'clock for journaling. We have journaling, and it's all next week is our chat sessions. And Robin, you've just been fantastic, and we really enjoyed everything. And I hope we can. Look forward to hear your musical. It's a musical. How to Marry a Mensch. I think this will be fantastic. And
someone just asked the name of the books. I was showing it.
That's right. That's great.